Hello everyone. If you're watching this, you're looking at the recap of day 1 of week 10. It's the only day we've met this week. Let's go ahead and get to it. So this is really our time to finish up that second part of the app design project. Again, remember, we're not doing coding at this point. We did not actually learn how to code yet, although we will be taking a look at some coding today. But the objective is to really focus on creating a tight design. That is to say, everything flows well together, everything is intuitive, your buttons make a lot of sense as to where they take you. There's nowhere to get stuck. That is to say, that I can't press a button and end up with a screen I can't leave. So your design should make sense. And the timing for that is due Friday the 6th, which is tomorrow at midnight. And it shouldn't take you super long. We're just looking to actually create the skeleton of our program, and then we're going to be creating the code for it later. You're going to be identifying good design elements throughout this whole project, use feedback, design an interface that makes sense, that's nice and clean, and you're going to today distinguish between sequential and event-driven programming. So let's go ahead and dive into that topic first. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to code.org, go ahead and head to our class page here, and then underneath Unit 3, we're going to be taking a look at Lesson 6. We are skipping over Lesson 5. We'll come back to that one. I think that one deserves a little bit more time, and we'll give that time to it next week. We're going to take a look at Bubble 2 here. And this is our first foray into programming. So we're just going to be overviewing some very basic programming ideas. To give you a kind of understanding of what we're looking at here, this is what your screen will actually look like when you run the program. This is the code. Over here is the toolbox where we can have various commands housed. Think of it like your library of all the possible commands available to you. And you'll notice that currently there's only one command available to us. So this is a very, very simple example. Later on, we'll have all kinds of things in here that you can use. Now, the nice thing here is you can take this and drag and drop it anywhere you want in your program, and it'll kind of slot itself nicely into that line, or you can drag it back to get rid of stuff. Most programmers, however, do not use this method. We type out our code, so you can click the Show Text button over here to view the textual representation of the code, and this is something we're going to move forward towards in the future, with me recommending that you type your code. But for now, dragging these and dropping them is just fine. Now, what is this console.log command? Oftentimes, it's very, very useful for debugging purposes to have a way to output information not to the actual program, but to something called the debug console, or a place where you could read those messages as the developer, but don't really see them reflected in the actual execution of your code. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. If I run this, you'll see that nothing is going to happen over here because we haven't got any code that affects the screen, and we'll see a bunch of words pop up in our console here because that's what we did. Now you can speed up your execution by sliding up on the slider, or slowing down by sliding to the left. Slowing down can be helpful if we do encounter a problem and we want to see exactly where it occurs by going line by line. Oftentimes it's faster to just go over this way and have your whole program execute lightning fast. Do note you can output numbers, as well as later on we'll learn about variables. You can output those as well. So not only words. If you are going to do output words, make sure you have quotation marks. If you miss a quotation mark, you'll get an error. And if you try to run the program with an error, you'll get this scary red screen telling you messed up somewhere in your program. And usually the red squares are pretty accurate, telling you what line things are wrong on, but sometimes they're a little difficult or cryptic to understand in terms of what they mean. So unclosed string might be a little bit difficult to get a grasp of if you don't know what a string is, which we don't yet. We'll be learning that later. And if you remove this one, it's even worse. It's going to say expected an identifier, and instead saw try. So what's an identifier? Who knows? So you have to use a little bit of common sense and your programmer know-how to figure these problems out. Moving forward to the rest of these, I'm not going to belabor them, but I am going to focus on this idea of event-driven programming versus sequential programming. So this bubble here, bubble 4, represents this difference the best. Sequential programming is programming that runs in order no matter what. So in this case, the console commands, the console.log here and here, are going to run one after the other, no matter what I do as the user. I can click everywhere, press buttons, it won't matter. As long as the program is running, those two will happen right after the other. So let's see that happen in action. If I hit run, I'll see down here it says starting my program, and then let's speed it up, and then I'll say ending my program. Event-driven programming relies on the actual user of your program to do something in order for the event to trigger. We are going to be using onEvent for all event programming in our class. So onEvent here says do something when the button is clicked, and it'll wait for the user to click it and do nothing until that point. So this could happen early in the program, before the start, could happen after the end, it doesn't matter. So if I click on it now, notice you click the button, will still happen despite it being before this ending of my program script down here. So event-driven programming can be very powerful because it allows you for very asynchronous event ideas, right? When you plan out your program, you can have things happen independently of where you put them in your code. That is it for event-driven programming. This idea of sequential programming is going to become very important moving forward, as we're going to be taking a look at this as one of the main pillars of what makes programming possible, especially as we go into algorithms. The rest of the class we spent working on the project. Please make sure that your actual answers are placed into Lesson 4, Bubble 3. So your actual design needs to go right in here. If you put it somewhere else, I will not find it, and I won't be able to grade it. Once again, this is due Friday at midnight, and is your last quarter 1 grade, so make sure you get that to me. Alright guys, thank you very much for coming, and I hope you have a great 3-day weekend. See you next week.